Credit card fees are on the rise, and what should you do about it? Hi, I'm Kayla Swanson, and I'm your host of the Profitable Solopreneur podcast. And hanging out with me today is Jason Everett. What's up, Jason?
What's going on? Excited to be hanging out with you today, Kayla, and talking about credit card fees. Man, what a beautiful subject. Who doesn't like talking about credit card fees? If you love credit card fees, yell credit cards at your radio right now.
You're like, oh man, not this. We have had so many people asking, what should we do? The credit card fees, all the companies are raising them.
Sure.
And they're like, it's honestly taking profit. And there's just such a big conversation. So like, well, let's bring Jason on and let's have the conversation that people have been asking.
Let's do it. And by the way, it sounds funny when you said it, it triggered my brain. Nobody takes your profit. You just choose to give it up by the decisions that you make. Is that okay? Is that okay?
That is perfect, because then it's realizing that if you're struggling with a certain problem, it means there is a solution to do it differently. You just make a different choice. And
100%. And I think about this for just a second, is that you're choosing to take credit cards. Like, you could choose to just be cash in your salon. You could choose to just be the barter system and people could come in and trade shells with you. Like and that's
bring a chicken.
Right, bring a chicken, bring half a cow. And that sounds weird, but like, I grew up in the farm. That's how it works. But my point is in that, Kayla, is like, we choose to accept credit cards as businesses to do benefit for our clients, and they charge us a fee in exchange for that. The difference is the laws have recently changed, and that's what I want to talk about on today's show. Is like, the laws are different. You got to do some research and find out what your local state laws are. And because the laws have changed, it's now allowing people to do business differently. And I have a lot to say about this. I'm hot on this subject today.
I know. It's going to be great. So you're saying that, like, so every state, so let's say, is going to have different laws and for what the credit card fees are. So make sure you check your state laws.
Yeah. I mean, what I would just say is always, without a question, because people in other countries listen to this podcast too. So like, check your state, check your country, check all of those laws. And if like, where do I check? It's called Google. And you just say like, is it legal to charge credit card fees in Nebraska, in California, in whatever? And like, you don't want to find somebody who on like wiki answers. You want to find somebody that like points to the law where it actually shows you that. And I believe, and I don't want to speak incorrectly, but in America right now, I believe, this is so bad, check, you got to Google it, is that in most states in America now, it is totally legal to pass forward a credit card fee to your client as they're purchasing as a service fee. And what that means is like, and you've probably seen this if you go to restaurants right now, if you go to a restaurant, it will say something like a 5% service fee will be added to your bill if you use a credit card. Now, that, just to be clear, what businesses used to do is they would say, well, hey, I want to be able to accept credit cards, so I'm just going to mark up everything by 5% because the credit card company charges anywhere from 3% to 5%. So I'll just mark up everything across the board by 5% as a, quote, cost of doing business or cost of goods sold, right? So you just absorb that 5% by raising your prices slightly. Now, the problem is everybody's raising their prices in this inflationary time and all these other things. And like, so businesses were getting creative to say, well, what else can I do? And by the way, not to go on too much of a tangent, but like tipping is similar to this. It's like, well, how do you kind of raise your price without raising your price? You're like, well, then let's get you tips. And that's a whole nother conversation for another podcast that we can talk about, because tipping culture is a whole different thing. But the idea is that you just kind of put it in as another fee, right? So a tip is kind of still another fee, even though it's optional. This would be a required fee to say, hey, we're going to add in a service charge. And what you're doing is you're basically breaking down the bill, the tab, the receipt, the ticket. You're breaking that down so the client can clearly see what they are choosing to pay for. This is really important because, as you know, Kayla, we do parts and labor pricing in most of our Academy clients. What that means is they pay for labor, they pay for the product that they use, meaning, how much, chem system or color or whatever, that gets broken down. And so now that we've broken it down and we said, here's what you paid for labor, here's what you paid for chemicals, would you like to use a credit card? If so, there's another 3% service fee that will be added to your total for using a credit card. And so breaking it down allows the customer to be in control of how much they pay. So just listen to this mindset. Okay. We are rolling out new fees to allow you to pay what you choose, not what we want. Because we can either mark it up, but that's not fair for people who are willing to pay cash. You're paying for a markup that you shouldn't pay. And if you're willing to pay with a debit card or you're willing to pay with cash, we'll give you a benefit. So I used to charge credit card fees when I did this a long time ago. And I would talk to some people because it was legal in California. And I talked to some people in some states and they go, Jason, you can't do that. It's illegal. And I actually, just being a novice business owner, didn't know that in some states it was illegal. Now I'm pretty confident, check your local laws, that in almost every state in the United States now, you can pass forward a credit card fee. Now, if for some reason you find out you can't charge a credit card fee, that doesn't mean you can't charge a service fee or a convenience fee for the pleasure of using a credit card. So just be mindful that there are creative ways to add that into it. But I want you to hear, you always have to talk in terms of what's in it for the guest. What's in it for the guest, and we're making it convenient, and you're not raising prices. That's what everybody's afraid of, right? I'm gonna raise prices, I'm gonna lose clients. Well, the reality is that you're not raising prices. You're giving people the option and say, hey, rather than just raising price across the board for everybody, we wanted to allow people who use credit cards to be able to remain to have the convenience to do that. And for those that have cash or they like to use their debit card, we will give them an added benefit. See the difference in that conversation versus I'm now charging people credit card fees. And a lot of people spin it as like, well, the cost of credit cards have gone up. I mean, not really. The cost of everything else you've done has gone up. And now you're just saying, I probably need to split this out. So just like when you roll out something like parts and labor pricing, you say, I'm only going to charge you for what you use. This is the exact same pricing model. You're just saying, I'm only going to charge you for how you want to pay.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're saying that when people... So when, you itemize it out there. So when they're going to go pay what they're paying for, it's on the receipt and they look and see, okay, I'm paying for, if you want to use a credit card, totally fine. But this is what
there's a 3% fee. And by the way, you have to figure out in your software, in whatever software you're using, there should be a fee add option to say, hey, if somebody's using that, you can add in that service fee. It may require some front desk training. You might have to talk to your software company and figure out, can it be done for only when they use credit cards versus debit cards. And you got to look, like if they pay cash, obviously no fee. If it's a debit card, maybe it's a 1% fee. And then if they use a credit card, it's maybe a 5% fee. You can set that up with your credit card processor, which is usually your software company, and just be aware of those things. It may be a separate thing you have to add that you have to pay attention to at the front desk. Ideally, you can have it built in the system. But in California, if you think about it, Kayla, you and I both live in California. If you go to the gas station, it has cash price and credit card price. People are like, F you, gas station. They're just like, I know that I'm choosing to pay with a credit card, so I pay more. And you accept it. And that's the thing. And so what I will just also say on the front end of this, and we can dive into all these details, is every single client who has rolled this out has almost no pushback. I had somebody say out of 700 clients, they had 2 clients even bring it up. They're like, yeah, I see this fees on here. This didn't used to be here. And you're like, oh, yeah. And this is how you respond. And you have to train your front desk to do it. That is correct. We now offer 2 different ways to pay that can actually make it cheaper for you to come and get your service. Number 1 is without a credit card fee or without a service fee. And number 2 is with that service fee if you choose to use a credit card. Which would you like to use? Not, oh, yeah, we raised prices. Sorry about that.
So I'm curious because for me, listening to this, I'm like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Everybody does it. Restaurants do it. There's always different ads on. And so why are people so up in arms about this? Or this is such a big conversation.
People aren't, people aren't up in arms about it. The people who are up in arms are the salon owners worried about people being up in arms. So do you see the difference? Is what's happening right now is people's perception of what's going to happen is greater than reality. So there are not clients complaining about this across the board. There's no news story that's like, tonight at 11, why are businesses charging credit card fees for charging you? That's not happening. What's happening is salon owners are going, I don't know, should I do it? Should I not? Maybe it'll make all my clients hate me. And I'm like, look, as it says in this podcast, the number one thing I love about salon owners is they have big hearts. The number one problem of every salon owner, they have effing big hearts. So the problem is anything that could potentially prevent them from having the best relationship ever with another human being, even though it costs you too much money to run your business this way, is a problem. Right? So let's just give you some math here. Let's do some math. So let's say you're a $300,000 a year salon, $300,000 a year, right? $300,000 a year times, let's call it a 3% service fee. That means, okay, so let's do, what is that? Let's do, what did I say? $300,000 a year? 3%. Times 0.03. That means $9,000 a year you are giving up in profit to go directly to credit card fees. Now, that's not a giant salon, $300,000 a year. Let's take a $1 million salon, and this is easier math, but you're going to give up about 30 grand, I believe, if I do the math right, 0.03%. Yeah, you're giving up $30,000 a year in credit card fees. Now, think about this.
A lot.
What would you do? What if that was just pure income to you? If that was pure profit, now, don't get me wrong, not everybody uses credit cards, so maybe it's a little bit less. But let's say at $1 million salon, you are doing $1 million salon, let's say it's only $20,000 in fees. What added benefit could you give to your staff for the extra $20,000? What added benefit? $20,000 divided by 12 months. Yeah, it's $1,600 a month. That's a lot. And this might sound silly, but like, that pays for quite a bit of things. It pays for your insurance. It pays for advertising. It pays for coaching. It pays for like, what is it going to pay for? And so your job as a business owner is to figure out how to use your money wisely to make more of it and deliver a high value, high quality service to your clients and customers so they repeat and come back over and over and over again. And again, I'm not saying charge a service fee for just everybody. That's what you were doing before. Shame on you, business owner. You should have been mad about that. Is that you were charging for people to use a credit card even though they were paying with cash. That's another way to look at the same exact problem. So when you look at it that way, totally different transformational idea of like why putting that credit card fee on that ticket is only charging people for what they use. Use a credit card, you get a fee. You don't use a credit card, no fee.
That makes so much sense. So when rolling this out, so people, hopefully after you're listening to this, you have a different mindset of how to roll out, like how to process credit card fees and roll them out and apply them to your business. Because I think a lot of people, we hear it a lot where people they try to think of the people, like you said, they have big hearts and they don't think
they're just worried somebody's going to be upset.
Yeah, but you got to focus on your business. And you got to think, what is the best thing for your business? You are going to get credit card fees. That's not going away anytime soon. And so being able to roll it out in a way that makes sense for you, for the salon, for your team, like make sure for your guests, and it all makes sense for everybody, then that's how you roll it out. And people can't argue.
Well, so here's the rollout plan. First of all, you got to get clear about how you're going to do it. Then in our world, in the academy, we would teach you to roll it out to your leadership team. Sorry, I said that weird. You roll it out to your leadership team and say, look, guys, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what we're looking at doing. It's going to allow us to provide more perks and benefits for you guys as the stylist. Like we can roll some new cool things out. So we want to be able to do that. And I want to train the team on how to talk about it if it comes up. I've heard that it won't come up very much, but let's do it. Now, if you start that out from being scared of your clients, oh my God, what's going to happen? You'll be like, well, guys, if anybody brings it up, like just, don't talk about it and whatever. Like, look, your fear is what they're going to pick up on. If you're excited about it, you think it's going to be no big deal, they will be excited and think it's no big deal. And then you will communicate that to them and they're going to do it. Now, if they push back, you roll it out to your leadership team and they start freaking out, you get to go, okay, guys, let me ask you this. How many places have you been to in the last month that charge a credit card fee? Have you noticed? And let's just observe. You guys keep track for the week. I want you guys to keep track of where are you paying credit card fees. And they're going to be like, well, shoot, I went to a restaurant yesterday and they did it. Did you leave the restaurant when you found out that they were charging a fee? No. What about online? Have you ever bought something from an online website and then they charge you extra for shipping? Oh, how dare they charge you extra for shipping? Amazon doesn't charge you for shipping. What a ripoff. No, you still buy it, even though it has shipping, and additional fees are added in there. So, where are you paying for additional fees that you might not know? And most of them will realize, and that's your job as the owner, is get them to realize that their fear is irrational, right? Fear stands for false evidence appearing real. And the problem for so many people, if that was a good one, I didn't know you didn't know that one, but yeah, false evidence appearing real. So what happens is you have an idea in your mind that's false evidence. I have evidence that people are going to be concerned. And it seems real to me. They're all going to freak out. And especially, you said everybody's freaking out, whatever you said, right? Whatever version of like everybody's stressing out about it. That's up in arms. That's what you said. Is that like, oh, what if I raise prices and everybody freaks out? What if I raise prices and everybody freaks out? And in our group, I said, hey, everybody stop. Who's raised prices? And like 20 people, not raised prices. Who's added credit card fees to their services? And like 15 people said, I have. And I said, what was the impact? And they were like, almost nothing. Listen to the voices that are not freaking out with you. Man, that Chicken Little story, like the sky is falling, the sky is falling. Don't listen to the other people who haven't done it yet. Listen to the people with experience. And that's why being in the academy is so powerful, is you grow in your confidence when you see other people have already done it in front of you. See, the problem for so many salon owners is you're like, I don't know, I've never tried it. And I'm like, what if I told you that 75 other salon owners have done it and had no issue? Does that build your confidence? What if I told you 250 salon owners have already done it and they've had no issue? Then all of a sudden you're like, well, maybe I'll give it a try. And that's the whole point, is I want you to build confidence by trusting the group. That's the power of something like the academy, because you can get somebody's advice who's already been there. Stop taking advice from the other people who haven't done it yet. They're scared the hell out of it.
So true, because I think people do. They comment about it and they want to get advice from other people because
they're getting advice from other people who haven't done it. Wrong place to get advice.
You're shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly. It's like
because then you're just commiserating.
It's like asking people who don't have kids, what's it like to have kids? You don't know. You don't know. You
know.
can't know. If you ask other parents, they're like, best thing ever. Also the worst thing ever, but it's the best thing and the worst thing. It's weird and like, it's amazing. But you ask people who don't have kids, like, no big deal. Or, I'd never have kids. And you're like, you're asking the wrong people.
Yeah. You got to ask the people who've been there, who've done it. And also the people who did it right. Because there's also asking people who've done it and did it wrong.
My old boss who had been divorced multiple times, when I went to get married, he's like, congratulations. We'll see how long that lasts.
Ready to transform your business and improve your salon's profitability? With Lonza's 3-in-1 technology and intermixable shades, your hair color inventory is streamlined with limitless creativity behind the chair. Click the link below to unveil the secret to salon success.
And I was like, oh man, that's so gross. And like, my wife and I had been together for like 23 years. And like, we have no plans of having that ever stop. And it's one of those things of like, it's just, you got to ask advice from the right people because, somebody who's divorced will give you terrible advice.
Yeah. I think that's such a good point to make. And I want to make sure we do make that is when you're asking for advice from somebody, you have to really like be mindful of if you like, okay, I'm going to ask this person, be ready that if they are giving you the wrong advice to let it roll off your back because not everything everybody says is
and
the right
qualify their advice. Like I've learned to ask this question. Hey, have you tried this? Yes, I have. And it didn't work. Great. How did you roll it out to your team? Because there's some people that are like, well, and this is what a lot of people do. What we decided to do was we emailed all of our clients and we said, as of this day, we are changing pricing from this model to this model. And I hope you're okay with it. And like, please let me know if you're not and blah, 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 blah. And like, they sent an email out to everybody instead of just coming in on their next service and just having a posted notice that says, as of July 1st, we've updated our policy. And like, you don't have to email everybody. And they're like, well, I received 15 emails of grumpy people, so we got rid of it. I'm like, well, you asked for it. You literally said, if you don't like it, let me know. And that it's all in the rollout, right? So it's like, why was my old boss divorced? Well, he cheated on his wife multiple times. Like, duh. Do you know what I'm saying? No offense to my old boss, but I'm just saying, like, you got to figure out like what led you to the problem that you have. And I can't take his advice from other advice. Make sense?
Yeah, completely. Now it's such a good conversation to be able to have. And I hope that you're catching this on being able to think a little bit, like step out of your fears, step out of what you think could go wrong, what could go wrong, and think about it logically. Think about like, it makes sense. If you think about it and roll out, like, I love what you said, Jason, about asking your team members to be like, how many times have you paid other fees for using credit cards?
Or do you even know? And if you don't know, it's important for you to be aware of that. And there will, and by the way, I think it's also important to address, there will be some clients that say something about it, and that's okay. So and say, hey, look, we have a lot of rising costs that happen inside the salon. And so we wanted to give you a way to control some of the cost that gets passed to you. Did you hear the words I just said? Is like, we understand we have a lot of rising costs and we want to be able to help you be in control of what gets passed to you and what doesn't. So if you don't want to pay more money, all you have to do is pay in cash or with a debit card. If you're okay paying more money and it doesn't matter, then feel free to pay with a credit card still. And they're like, well, I was always paying with a credit card and I never paid a fee. I'm like, well, we were either going to raise price across the board or we allowed it to allow you to choose. I put you in control again. See how just different the languaging is and just what you're saying is like, hey, this is what's going on. Here's how we can make it better. It's for you.
And if you go back to, if you're $1 million salon, you pay $30,000 in credit card fees.
Minimum.
You lose a couple clients because of this. Then, compared to how much money you'd be losing if you didn't charge the credit card fees, which is
And by the way, we're talking about this even in our coaching company. And like it's hot. It's a hot topic in our coaching companies. It's like same thing. Some people believe it's just a cost of doing business. Other people are like, hey, that needs to be rolled out as a part of how you charge and what you do. So we're considering that as well. And again, it's got to be able to be like, hey, I still need to provide somebody with an option that says you can keep your exact same rate. I am not changing the price on you. And that's what people think is happening. It's not changing the price on you. However, for those of you that want to continue to use credit cards, here's the option that you can pay. And I'm happy to do it either way.
Right. And going back to when you roll it out, like you were saying, talking about it, like, is it best for how is it going to work with the client? And just like, think about it. When you roll it out, just think through those things. And we actually have a rollout checklist that we just created, going to be released next week.
Look at that. If you want to join in that. Stuff. Cool resource. Yeah. So how do you roll that out to your team and what are the processes, right? Yeah.
Yes, good. Exactly. So we have a whole checklist of how to roll it out to your team, to your clients, everything. And it can be for anything you want to roll out in your salon. We curated the questions that make sense to ask yourself before you go through it. And it makes you think about different avenues of what could go wrong. How did this go wrong in the past? Just questions to ask yourself before you roll anything out. So if you want that, I'll put the link in the description so you can check it out. Don't go look at it now. Wait till after you're done.
Yes. Let's not do it while we're podcasting. But yeah, or if you're watching this live somewhere, you can comment below and make sure you have that too. That's totally fine.
Exactly. So Jason, I also wanted to mention, because we're talking about like passing credit card fees to our clients and our guests and things like that. And so we had a conversation not long ago about passing more fees, like realizing what is actually happening in your salon and what are you paying, what are you charging for, or what are the actual costs that go into each guest coming into your salon, what costs go through that. So I want to open and touch on that a little bit. I know it's probably a whole
I was going to say that's a whole other can of worms, but
I know. Okay. But thinking of what, in how, like, changing your mindset. I love the mindset that we're kind of talking about.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, you got to remember that your customer pays for everything. Like, I think sometimes people forget that is like your job is to figure out how to give your client the most value with the least amount of money. So meaning like your job, like think about, let's go to a very basic level. If I was to go buy a loaf of bread at the store, okay, and I'm making this number up. I have no idea. I've not really made bread anytime recently, but hear me out. If I'm going to make bread, I might be able to buy all the ingredients for bread, let's just say, for $5. I can buy all the ingredients for bread for $5. I can make a loaf of bread. But here's the problem. It's probably not $5. I probably have to spend $40 in things. I got to buy flour and yeast and all these, and I have surplus. I have too much. I just want one loaf of bread. And in order for me to buy flour and all these things, I got to buy $25 and stuff, or I can go to the grocery store and pay $2 for a loaf of bread because they buy in bulk. Right? They buy in bulk and they get a really good price on a very small amount and they sell me one loaf of bread. I only need one loaf of bread. Your job as a business owner is to do the exact same thing, to buy whatever you can in bulk to get the best deal on it and then sell it for the greatest value that you're selling to somebody. So like a lot of people like home baked bread. Well, of course, that loaf of home baked bread might even cost you more than it would at the store. Why? Because you have to buy smaller quantities than what the store is buying. They're buying much bigger quantities of what they're doing. So same for you. At the salon, you are buying larger quantities than what the individual can buy, or you're buying professional products that are not available to the consumer. Right. And instead of somebody else having to do it all on their own and think of it this way, is like go and get their hair cut in the living room and sweep it up and do all these the haircuts in the living room sound terrible. They're normally the kitchen, by the way, but like haircuts in the kitchen, you got to clean it all up. You're paying for the convenience of going into a salon and not having to clean it up yourself, not screwing it up for 35 haircuts. Like it's somebody who's really good at doing it. So you're providing more value because of your scalability, the way in which you deliver, the atmosphere in which you deliver it. And every single one of those things should be a cost that's passed on to the customer in some form or fashion. Even if you're shampooing, even the water, even the product, even the lights that are on, every single one of those things the customer is actually paying for. Your job is just to do it in a scale where the value can be very high.
Yeah.
Does that help a little bit? I know we went into bread and we got on a random tangent, but
no, that's good. Because I love like talking about in the mindset of when you like charging, because people they're sensitive to upsetting their clients because they're raising their prices or they're charging them more things. But looking at your business, like it's a smart business move to be able to look at what it actually costs to serve the clients.
They're worried about what the clients or customers will think about them. Let's be honest. Like you're worried that somebody's going to think you're greedy. You're worried that somebody's going to think you're shady. You're worried somebody's going to think you've changed. You're worried somebody's going to think whatever. And that's really what all this is all about. And it's even worse when the stylist is worried that their favorite best friend, client, whomever is going to think something bad about them. So that's why positioning is everything, is being able to have that conversation and be able to say, here's why I'm doing it. Here's why it's for you. It's good for you and it's good for us. Right. And I always say this, it's got to be good for all three. It's got to be good for the salon, good for the stylist, and good for the guest, but actually in reverse order. It's got to be good for the guest first, good for the stylist, and then lastly, it's got to be good for the salon. But a lot of times, clients do things that are really good for the guest, maybe okay for the stylist, and really bad for the salon. That's not good. That's not going to lead you to a profitable business. You have to be able to do things that are good for all three and lead with what's good for the guest, not what's good for the salon.
So good. And I think you were talking about you have the fear that when people come in, they're going to ask questions and question it on you and be like, what about this? But if you get educated and get the right way to, how does it benefit the guests to a point where you can communicate that to them when they question, then that fear that you have of like, what if things go wrong? It's like, you can ask because I have an answer for you.
And I'm not uncomfortable with the answer. Like people are worried about getting asked questions they either don't know the answer to or they don't have a good answer for. I just had to make a really hard decision the other day to handle something a certain way. And I was freaking out and stressing out about it. And like somebody turned to me like, Jason, you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Why are you upset about it? I'm like, because this person's going to be upset. And I'm like, well, I know they're going to be upset. And they're like, but you're doing exactly what needs to be done. And I'm like, You're right. And it was just good relief of like, this is what needs to be done. I made the decision and we're going forward. It needs to be done. And that's the decision I'm allowed to make. And so I think sometimes you have to make decisions of what's good for the business. And if you're really honest, as I'm talking to you on this podcast, how often do you make decisions that are actually not good for you and you take one on the chin or you just like eat it and agree to it? Remember what I said at the beginning of this podcast. Nobody can take profit from you. You can only give it up. Super important. Yeah. Super important. You choose to give it up. You choose to give it up.
And if you think that you don't have that choice, then you need to reevaluate how you're looking at your business and the decision.
That's where I'd say you jump on the phone with our team. We'll figure out like, what are your profit, what are the holes inside your business that are eating profit that you chose 5 years ago to do. And like, it's not serving you, but you think it is. And you're like, why don't I have any money? I'm like, cause you're dropping, like you have a hole in your pocket and the pocket is losing money. Or somebody talked you out of that money in your pocket a long time ago and you just kept agreeing to it.
Got stuck there.
Paying too high commission, doing some deal that doesn't really work out for you. If you're in a bad deal, get out of the deal.
Exactly. I heard a quote this morning that I thought was super crazy for me to even in my life is focus on making your decision right over making the right decision because you got to just make a choice. Yeah. And if you make a choice and you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, then you focus on, then make that decision the right decision and do what you got to do to make that one right. Don't get held up on like, oh, what choice should I make? Because at the end of the day, there's not really, there's right and wrong, but there's like, you just got to make a choice. You got to make a choice what feels right and then move forward and work on making that choice right, which is
that's all you can do. So hopefully as you're listening to this show, and that's why Kayla, I think you nailed it, is what choice you're going to make. Is this something that you want to roll out in your salon? I don't know. Is this something that you can sit with your leadership team on and discuss? Is this something you need more help with before you do it? Do you need the confidence to borrow? Like, do you need to borrow some of our confidence before you do it? That's what people do. Like, borrow our confidence and we'll show you how to do it, or we'll give you the rollout plan, or get the checklist, or get on the phone with our team and like figure out what are some of the ways that we can help you do it. Because I'll tell you, man, it literally might be that you do the math, right? Take whatever your annual revenue is times 3%, times 5%, and that's how much you're giving up. I've had salons that are multi-million-dollar salons. They did the number. They're like, oh my God, this is $90,000. And I'm like, yes, it is. They're like, I could do a lot with 90 grand. I'm like, that's kind of the point. Do the math, man. The math doesn't lie.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this, I love that. If you're listening to this and you're just like, yeah, well, that sounds great for you guys, and you're not sure, you're unsure, just find support and come talk with us. We'd love to share our resources with you. Yeah, borrow confidence. I love that because it is. It's like there's another quote that I love is let it be easy. It doesn't have to be this big complicated ordeal. It just means like focus on it, get the right advice from the right people who've been there and done it, and don't go to your Facebook group commenting who else is afraid of this, because you're going to find
if you're afraid and you're asking, all you're going to do is find more people who are afraid. If you just say, who's worried about raising prices? All the people are like, me. And you're like, see, everybody's worried about it. And you're seeing that versus asking the other question, which is who's raised prices and hasn't had any issues? And then you're going to get another group of people that are like, me. And that's who you want to listen to.
You'll find who you look for.
And I say raising prices, adding credit card fees. You know what I mean?
Yeah, all of it. You need support. Find people who've done it successfully and follow those people. So if you need any support for your salon, I'm going to put a number in a description. Just text us support, and I'd love to have a conversation with you and your specific needs or anything, questions that you have that come up from this. Like, but what about my situation? Yeah. We'd love to have the conversation.
Happy to personalize, man.
All sorts of fun things in the description. Don't do it while you're driving. And thank you so much, Jason, for hanging out. I always love having you on the podcast. Such a rich conversation. And we'll see you next time on the Profitable Salon Podcast.
You've been listening to the Profitable Salon Owner Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review, and check us out at ProfitableSalon.com for more episodes, content, and to help you turn your salon into the business you've always dreamt of.